Why is this show called This, you may ask? So I'll tell you. The exact meaning of evangelist messenger and the exact meaning of destiny is to make firm establish. So my guests and I bring you messages to establish what you need to know in the present. And of course, I do like working with angels, the calmness they bring. Now, in a moment, I'll introduce you to my wonderful guest, Sally-Shakti Willow. But before that, I'd like to say thank you so much for watching the show live or at a later date, as it means a lot to both of us to connect with like-minded people. Now, if you've never met me before, then my name is Ray, and I'm the founder of Radiant Angel Energy. And I'm a guide who helps you remember your divine presence so that you can heal your past, find your purpose, create your future to expand your consciousness, understand your spiritual path, get clarity on your next steps, and take charge of your destiny so that you can feel your purpose in this lifetime. Now, each episode of this show covers various themes of your journey, a mini guided meditation or angel oracle card reading with the wisdom of my wonderful guests, like today's guest, Sally-Shakti Willow, about how intuitive journaling can help you connect with your inner wisdom. Now, Sally-Shakti is a star priestess and visionary writing guide who loves to support soul-centered visionaries to get their words onto the page and tell their transformational stories so they can change lives and change the world. She's an international best-selling author with a PhD in poetry, and she has published 8 books so far. Now, Sally-Shakti has been teaching writing for over 20 years, combining ritual, ceremony, and writing in her own work and with others since 2010. Sally-Shakti is the founder of Writing and Thriving, a book coaching company helping visionary writers to write, publish, and launch their transformational book in 90 days. And she was featured in LA's Weekly's 15 Book Coaches to watch in June 2023. Now, with testimonials such as, I'd had a book brewing in me for years, but I didn't know how to start. It was a combination of fear and overwhelm. Sally-Shakti's mentoring is helping me to actually bring my book into the world, to understand and improve my writing process, and to improve the quality of my writing. All of these things together have helped improve my confidence as a writer. And Sally-Shakti has helped me feel safe to write. She's also helped me avoid pitfalls. Her direction each time has helped me feel more confident, disentangled from the worries that stopped me from finishing what I started. And Sally-Shakti understands the connection between mindfulness and the creative process and is skilled in establishing a nurturing environment which cultivates a heightened sense of awareness and presence to engage in writing. Her ability to guide me through mindfulness exercises and meditation techniques before diving into my writing sessions transformed the way I approached my work. This has enabled me to feel more connected to my thoughts, emotions, and feelings about the narrative I was developing, which will resonate more with my readers' own journey. So, without further delay, hello, Sally-Shakti, and welcome to the Angels and Destiny show. How are you today?
Hi, Ray. Thank you so much for the beautiful introduction. And hi to everybody who's also here with us live and watching us now. It's really great to see you all here.
It is indeed. And before we get into this fascinating conversation, I want to remind you not only can you share this video, but you can also ask questions, leave comments and thoughts, as both Sally-Shakti and I want to be part of this conversation. So please don't be shy. So Sally-Shakti, why don't you tell us more about your journey and how we can use intuitive journaling to help us connect with our inner wisdom?
Thanks, Ray. I want to start with the story of how I developed this practice of intuitive journaling, really. And it's a story about how I left my first marriage and created a new life. So I was in my late 20s, and I would say throughout my 20s, really, I'd been quite unhappy. I had a good upbringing. I had a good life by most people's standards. I was doing all the things that I was expected to do at that age. I'd just been to university. I had a good career. I was working as a teacher, and I had a husband, and we had our own home. I had all the things that we're supposed to want and we're supposed to have at that age. But I want to go back a little bit before that time. I was very disconnected from myself. I really felt like I was living in my head. I was very good academically. I'd done really well at school. and at university, but I felt like there was nothing really landing in my body. I didn't really know what my body felt like. I just existed up in the headspace. And of course, now I understand a little bit more about trauma, and I recognize that dissociation is what happens when we're experiencing trauma, and we can be, kicked out of our bodies by that. And of course, I was very much indoctrinated by our culture and our education system to just really live from my mind, and I survived by living from my mind. I had my trauma really began, I suppose, at around the time I was starting school. That's when my parents divorced, and I don't have any memory of integrating those two things. I just went to school, and school was very separate. School was the thing that I did, and I did well at, and I never integrated my emotional response to my parents' divorce. And so by the time I was going through university, I had really almost no capacity to feel emotionally. So I moved through life. I did all the things that I thought I should do. And when it came to getting married to the person I was with, I went and had a rune reading with my Reiki teacher and my Reiki guide. So I was starting to open up intuitively to things, and I was doing my yoga practice. But I went to my Reiki teacher, and she did this rune reading for me. And the signs was this one that looks like two crosses. And when I looked at it, I thought, that means no, don't get married. But she told me a different meaning that she'd interpreted from it, about which wedding ring to buy. And I didn't listen to my intuition, because I thought she must know more than me. She's the Reiki teacher. She's the Reiki master. I'm just this person who doesn't really know anything. So I assumed she knew more than I did. And even though my response had been, no, don't get married, I said, oh, thanks. And I carried on, and I went ahead and got married, which is a really big decision to make. And of course, within a year, that was beginning to break down. I was very unhappy. So I took my notebook to the local cafe. It was you might know it, Canterbury Whole Foods. It was a local organic shop with a cafe up the top. This was, I don't know, nearly 20 years ago. I took my notebook to the cafe. I ordered a cup of rose tea. I remember it. And I just sat there with my journal. And what I did, I allowed myself to write freely. Now, I'd been a teacher. I'd studied English literature at up to degree level. I taught English in schools. So even though I had a very creative and intuitive approach to writing, I also was very much on the structured side of, you write to pass exams and you get things right. Yeah. So I just let myself open the notebook and see what wanted to come through. And the way I did that was actually with my right hand, which is my usual writing hand. I wrote a question, and then I would take my left hand, which is typically my more intuitive, receptive side, but not my dominant writing side, and I would start writing answers. And I began to have a conversation with myself in that way. Write the question and then let the answer come. And really, within quite a short space of time, it was very clear to me who I was, what I needed, and what next steps I needed to take. And that for me meant doing the thing that I knew I should have done in the first place, which was to make that break and to start creating a completely different life for myself. And that's how I am where I am now, which is in a very different place than I would have been otherwise. And that's really the power of that practice that just began with me allowing myself to see where it took me, and to trust for the first time, to actually trust what was coming through.
Yeah, that's such an amazing way of doing it, and sort of like just allowing that natural instinct. I mean, obviously you said you'd been to you had a Reiki master and you'd been doing moons. So were you when you started doing the journaling, were you sort of like spiritually aware about it? Was it an intention, or that you'd read about it, or you knew about it, or just to do that, use the two different hands?
I would say I have always been a very spiritual person, and growing up, similar to where you grew up, I grew up in slightly south of you, but in North Kent. It wasn't a very spiritual place to be. So although I had always been very spiritual, I had very, very much suppressed that. I'd read a few books. I had a real sense that life was meant to be more than I was living. But I didn't really know where to look for that. Now, my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, Nanny Joy, she was a yoga teacher. She was quite a pioneer. She learned yoga on a correspondence course from India in the late 70s, and she was teaching yoga up until for 30 years. She taught yoga, actually, up until I started practicing. um, I've got these beautiful framed images of her doing all of her asanas.
Wow.
Yes, in her leotard, including headstand. She was incredible.
Oh, that is so amazing. What a brilliant grandmother to have.
Yeah, she was absolutely wonderful. She's the one who used to make she used to make all these foods from the health food shop that nobody else had ever heard of as well, you know, like butter beans and chickpeas and brown rice.
Oh, amazing. Definitely a pioneer of her time.
She was. Yeah, you didn't I didn't even know where you could buy those foods back then, you know.
No, could you? Yeah, well, I suppose you could get them.
Yeah, so she was amazing. But a lot of what I mean, I was born in 1980. I grew up in really the 90s, and so much of that was suppressed in my own, you know, in my own life. So when I went into the cafe with my notebook, so far as I can remember now, I think I just sort of made up the practice as I went along, and trusted in what was happening.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And Graham says one side of the brain is material and the other side is spiritual. When you allow your intuition to open, relax, things happen positively. And
Absolutely.
Harley says the responses you wrote down, were they written automatically by your left hand, or were they answers that you were hearing?
Oh, that's a great question. I would I would say, knowing what I know now about my practice, I hear, but not necessarily auditorily. More like I can hear what the words are through my intuition. It wasn't like my hand wasn't moving itself. I was writing the words, but usually when I write, I know what the words are that are coming in, and then I let them move through me, and I can hear them, but not with my ears.
Yeah, yeah. I hope that answers your question, Harley. And Graham says, been there also say Cromans do assist when spiritual awareness is free. Yeah, they certainly do. So you took the the guidance you were given. You left your marriage. Did you continue teaching then, or did you leave teaching as well?
Ooh, yeah, it was intended to be a complete and total life transformation. But it was it was more gradual than what, you know, than what I really planned or wanted. But it, you know, all those different parts took time. So I did stop teaching full time. I went on to do supply teaching. I tried to start a yoga business. Um, you know, I'd done my yoga teacher training. I never really was any good at running a yoga business. I had no idea how to run a business, and again, living where I lived, it just didn't feel like there was enough people around. So my yoga business didn't work. So I had to keep staying attached to teaching for several more years until I did make a break, but I didn't go very far because I went back to university.
Well, yeah, back into education.
But ultimately that did change my life.
Yeah, no, like that did, and Harley says yes, she understands about the hearing. Sally, thank you.
Right, perfect.
Thank you for answering. So, how did the book writing come about?
I've always written. And are you asking about the book I've most recently written, or book writing in general?
The first book, how did that come about? Because that must have been the hardest one, or maybe it was the easiest one, and the rest have been harder.
Oh, the first book was a collaboration, and it was a young adult story. And this was before I'd gone back to university, but my plan was to write young adult fiction. I wanted to write young adult fantasy fiction. Again, everything I've always been doing is trying to channel spirit into form in one way or another. So I felt like the best outlet for me to do that at the time was write young adult fiction. And I collaborated with another author, which actually did help make it a lot easier, because we would write consecutive chapters. So I would write a chapter and then he would read it and write a chapter. And there were times when that was really annoying, because like that was I didn't want the story to go that way. I was like, what have you done? What have you done to my story? But you know, I had a lot of control issues. But it actually got the book done. I genuinely don't think the book would have got done without that, because there was just that rapport, there was that momentum, and there was always, I guess what also happened was, if he took the story in a direction I didn't want it to go in, I would respond by writing the next bit because I wanted to bring it back, or you know, so there was just that momentum. And that was I think the first full book that I wrote, and we self-published it.
Yeah. And Bridge Lane Stewart says that she has one of your poetry books. I love it. Her poetry is powerful. So poetry, where does poetry come into all this?
Oh, I have to say hi to Brucelyn. Thank you for being here, lovely. And I remember reading poetry to Brucelyn in the cafe at festivals many years ago. Poetry comes into it again. It's always been part of my self-expression. I have a little post-it note of the first thing I ever composed in writing, which is a poem, and my mum transcribed it for me. My granddad on the other side, my maternal grandfather, Grandad Sam, was a poet. He has that on his grave, which is really profound. So poetry's always been there. He used to tell us stories and you know, rhymes and you know, his poetry. He used to recite rhyming poetry, rhyming verse. For me, so I went back to university with the intention of writing young adult fiction. Realized that was quite hard, and discovered that experimental poetry was much more suited to my style of writing, because I could bring through what I wanted to bring through in a way that had a lot more freedom in its form. So I started writing poetry more seriously for my PhD. I spent 4 years as a full-time writer and researcher in poetry, getting paid to do that, which was great. I had a load of fun. I was doing performances. I would often perform naked to really, you know, break down that barrier of, you know, it was about embodiment and presence. It was about you know, I didn't want it to be provocative or evocative. It wasn't intended to be erotic. It was intended to be full-bodied presence and embodying the poetry that I'd been writing. So I often used to perform naked. And I wrote poetry and published, I think, 5 books of poetry during those 4 years of my PhD.
Wow, that's amazing. You know, 5 books in 4 years of poetry. That is like wow. Yeah, and I can understand. You know, about doing it naked. It's also the rawness as well, the natural of it. There's no barriers or anything. That sort of like makes it more acceptable to everybody. As
Yeah.
as well, which I think is absolutely amazing, and well done for seeing that as a way of allowing people to experience that as the rawness that it is. And I know Harley has written quite a long one here, so I wonder if this type of writing is like when you think you're writing a story, it comes from nowhere, characters do the speaking, but then you hit writer's block or stop of momentum. I wonder if this block of momentum is because the writing is more of clues of past lives or actual stories.
That's a really great question. I think that starts to bring us back into intuitive journaling from where
Yep,
we've been.
perfectly.
Thanks, Harley. Um, to an extent, I would say probably yes. Obviously, I can't answer that for everyone's writing all the time, but when I know through my own practice and when I guide other people into this practice that especially if we go into it for a length of time, the longer we go into it, the deeper we go. And so we might meet ancestral healing or past life healing. And like you hinted at, I think sometimes that's where the resistance can come up, because that's going to ask us to look at something that we've maybe suppressed or repressed or have not wanted to have in our memory. And it's going to ask us to really, I talk about becoming our own compassionate witness on the page. And I do say always to anyone, if you're going to do this kind of work, do seek guidance and support, because it can take you very deep very quickly. It can bring up a lot of stuff, and we need to make sure we have the holding and the support around us to be able to move through that. Because when we put our words down on the page, several different things can happen. It becomes a mirror to ourselves, and that can be quite confronting. And it also becomes, I think, a crucible for alchemy, because when we can create a certain amount of distance between ourselves and the emotion or the memory or whatever it is that's coming up by putting it onto the page, we're actually to a certain extent moving it out of our energy field and letting it go. And then by witnessing what is present with compassion and without judgment, that bit's really important. And it might take us several goes to get there without judgment, but that's where the magic happens, because that's where the transformation and the healing and the integration can happen, when we can fully accept ourselves and whatever might be arising for us in the moment as it is, and we can witness it on the page and know that we're safe, we're held, we're loved, and we're okay.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I like the way that as you share that kind of like we get to go so much deeper into us, because we're actually allowing that expression to come out of us that sometimes is so difficult to speak, but we can write it, which is why I think they sometimes say, don't they, if you've got anger with someone, write it
Yeah.
rather than speak it to them, because it gets it out the system. So when you do speak to them, it's not going to cause two, major issues with it, because you've actually got it out and you can understand it more before you actually speak it. So I think that's really good. Sort of like how you help people do that with the intuitive journaling. Although Harley does say, I was never good at writing poetry. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, words and poems appeared in less than 5 minutes.
Definitely, I think the more you open your channels through whatever means, and that could be dancing or moving or yoga or any other practices, you know, painting, the more you open your channels, the more receptive you are to that intuition and inspiration that wants to come through. And it does want to come through. You know, that's something I feel really passionately about as well, that, you know, if you have an idea to write a book or a poem, my understanding is, my sense of it at the moment is that that poem or that book also wants to be written by you. And so what you're doing is you're opening up the space to let it come through. And it doesn't have to be perfect, and it doesn't have to be what anybody else thinks it should be. It's the poem that is wanting to come into the world through you. And so when we can let that happen, it's really powerful.
Yeah, no, so, thank you for that. And Graham says, being aware of ancestral pasts intuitively and allowing your automatic writing enables us to review the past and grow from it, which is absolutely brilliant. So you finished, you did your 4 years, got your PhD in poetry, 5 books. Then what happened?
Then lockdown happened.
Ah, good old lockdown.
Yeah, that was a really interesting one. I was pretty certain I didn't want to go back to teaching. I didn't want to. I didn't even really want to teach in academia. I do actually run workshops for writers in academia, but it's slightly different. Um, I didn't want a career in teaching any longer, in that way. So I started very small scale in my local town, which was Eastbourne at the time, to hold basically intuitive journaling workshops, where we would, you know, we would get together and we would write. And I moved to a personal development community at the beginning of 2020. So I was a little bit ahead of the curve in that I took that practice online because I'd moved out of the area I was originally living in. So when I took that practice online, and then all of a sudden, you know, lockdown happened, people, we couldn't do work face to face. You know, this is really when a real series of profound transformations happened for me. So I had this idea that I was creating something called Writing and Thriving. I only had a tiny real sense of what that might be, but just at the beginning of that happening, I received an email from a business coach that I'd been following. And she said, whilst it's lockdown, I'm offering a series of free coaching calls to people who want to start their online business. Now, I'd been following her and I had thought to myself, if I ever had a business coach, that she'd be the person I would go to. And there, her invitation landed in my inbox and said, I'm offering free coaching. And that really did put me on the path that I'm on now, to actually running the business that I run, which is coaching writers to write.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And Deanne says, this was my question: the use of other forms of artistic expression to get you into channel and using other forms to help you clarify the process, um,
Yeah.
which is very true.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, it doesn't matter kind of, you know, you use which forms are appropriate for you. And, you know, the channel will open and then you can express in whichever forms are most appropriate to you as well.
Yeah, no, that's really good. So yeah, and Harley says, so cool. The universe was answering. Exactly. And then that's it, isn't it? When you sort of like you're in that space where you're supposed to be going, the universe does provide all those people to come into your life, all those stepping stones,
Yeah.
etc., to come in, which I think is absolutely brilliant. So you started obviously what you're doing now. So that's 6 books we've got. It's the first and the 5. So tell me about the others.
Oh, okay. So uh one is I've got two right here. So the two most recent ones here. So these both came out on the summer solstice this year. So got Manifesting Magical Moments, which is a multi-author book that we have got 18 authors in that, all telling our stories about this exact kind of thing, the way that magic manifests, just in the everyday life, and creates these openings, these portals, and these transformations for something new, and often in the stories very touching to appear. Then I have Writing and Thriving. This is the most recent. This is my hardback version. Writing and Thriving, Writing Tips and Wellbeing Tricks for Visionary Writers. This is, of all the books, this is the first, well, it's not long, but this is the first kind of lengthy prose non-fiction that there is, that I've written myself. So I'm really proud of that. It's full of all the things that I've learned on my path as a writer, as I've gone along. I think number 8 is got to go back to the beginning, and that is when I had a short story published with my local writing group, and it was called Gothic, like Gothic, but with QUE on the end, and it was a ghost story. I was quite young when I wrote it, but it was a ghost story about well, you didn't know she was a ghost until the end, but this woman who kind of walked down the stairs, and she puts all these clothing on, and she has this really kind of erotic embodied experience in these clothes, and she kind of sweeps down the stairs, and then at the end of the story you discover that she's actually a ghost, and so that was the first thing I ever had published.
Oh wow, amazing. I love it. Yeah, I think that's a brilliant. I love the title as well. I have to admit, I do like that title. So so anyone that's watching, if they kind of like wanted to start trying to do intuitive journaling, or what would be one of the best ways of doing it? Because you said about meditation and getting in the flow, and how would people start to do it?
Do you want me to guide people into it now, or just explain?
Um, I don't know if people have got a pen and paper with them and you want to do that. If not, well, even if you talk through it, then even if you can't do it now, watch the replay and actually experience it afterwards. So yeah, if you're happy to take people through, that'll be wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this practice, and it's different every time, So I'm gonna guide us through in 3 stages. This will be up to about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I'll guide us through in 3 stages. So it's good to have pen and paper available for this, because it works with with the hands, and we get more of an intuitive download through the hands. So let me just find a clean page that I can demonstrate on.
Yeah, I'll have to do this in the replay, so I'm looking forward to doing this.
Okay, so first I'm going to invite everyone, or anyone who wants to find your feet and your breath, the base of your spine and your belly. Just letting the breath lengthen. Softening the belly with every breath. Noticing the shoulders relax. Noticing the jaw relax. Noticing the forehead relax. And then sending your roots down, down, down into the belly of the earth, where there is fire, molten lava, and the creation of new life. Drawing that energy up, up, up to the base of your spine. Taking a few breaths. And letting that energy draw up into your heart center as it becomes like liquid honey, warm, golden, nourishing. Breathing with that liquid honey in your heart center. Perhaps noticing the arrival of golden white light down from the cosmos into your crown. And spiraling, merging into the warm liquid light at your heart center. Just expanding that sensation with every breath. And then noticing that liquid light beginning to spread out across your chest, into your shoulders, down your arms, your wrists, into the palms of your hands and your fingers. And when you feel ready, just softly opening the eyes and taking your pen and allowing your pen to simply move on the page. And if you can see my page, you'll just notice that the pen, I'm just moving the pen across the page. I'm not writing words, just letting the pen intuitively move. Just keep breathing. Staying connected to your breath, your belly, and your body. And just letting the pen keep moving across the page. Just allowing your mind to wander, your body to relax. Breathing into the belly. Just another few moments here. Really letting this practice loosen up all of your expectations, your intentions, letting go of any attachment to outcomes. And then taking a deeper breath. A little bit of movement in the shoulders, the chest, and preparing to make a soft transition into the next part of the practice, which is a free writing practice. So if you've done free writing before, you will know free writing is about just letting the words come out onto the page without judgment, without editing or criticism. Whatever is there present for you right now. And if you're not sure how to start, you can begin with the words I feel or I notice, and just let those words take you wherever they go. And taking a few moments here, staying connected to the breath, the body, and the belly. Keep breathing as you write. Just letting the words flow onto the page. Breathing. Connecting with the deeper parts of yourself. I feel or I notice. Keep writing. And let it go where it goes. Just taking another breath here. Keep the writing going. And then a little bit of stretch and movement in the body as we create a transition into the third and final part of the practice. And this is where we have a focus. So just where you are, if you have a question or a theme that you want to explore right now, write that down. And then again, let the words take you where they take you. You can do this part with your non-dominant, non-writing hand if you prefer, or you can keep going as you are. Just staying connected to your breath, your belly, and your body. Keeping that open channel between the root and the crown, and connecting with that liquid light at the heart center. Keep breathing, staying connected, and letting the words land on the page. Without judgment or editing or overthinking. Taking another minute here. Staying connected with your breath. Just letting the words fill up the page, allowing them to move through you. Taking a deeper breath. Finding that connection to the base of your spine. A little stretch, a little movement, sending your breath down to your feet. Giving thanks for what you have received. And then taking a deeper breath. Bring your hands together, just creating a little bit of warmth between the palms. Putting your hands over your eyes just for a moment as you open the eyes gently behind your palms. And then when you're ready, taking the palms away and coming back to this space. So that was a quick walk through intuitive journaling. Don't like to spend ages being silent when we when we're doing these.
No, no, no. That's quite understandable. Of course, when people watch this back, they can pause and then carry on if they want to keep more time with it. That was really nice. You know, even though I wasn't doing it because I didn't have any paper here and I was keeping an eye on everything, it was just so soothing and relaxing. It was like, oh, this is so nice. I was just enjoying it.
Thank you, and yeah, I'd love to hear what anybody else experienced, and if you have had things coming up for you, please reach out either to myself or to somebody who can support you with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And if there is anything you want to share in the comments, or you're happy to share publicly, then please do. We would love to hear from you. And Bridalyn says, thank you as always.
Yay! Thank you.
And in fact, you even said before you started that you had got your purple pen handy just in case.
Perfect. Oh, purple! It matches the show.
It does, absolutely. And Harley says that was amazing.
Oh, thank you, Harley. I'm really glad.
Yeah, no, that was really good. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. That was absolutely lovely, and I'm looking forward to actually going back once the show's finished and actually doing that myself. So, as you know, I do guided meditations and and angel oracle card reads, and each week I like to ask my guests whether they would like me to do a mini guided meditation or pull an angel oracle card for themselves and watch it. So I know I normally ask that, but seeing as we've just had a beautiful meditation um, from Sally-Shakti, I might as well just do a card for you,
Yes, please.
Sally-Shakti, and everyone watching. But before I do that, Harley says a war story came up,
Wow.
jumped from one time to another.
Just want to check in, Harley. How does that feel for you? Are you feeling okay, or did that bring up some tension and confusion?
Yeah, so whilst we're waiting for Harley to type that in, let's do the cards. Now, as people know, when I do the cards for what we need to know for our highest good at this moment in time. Because even though I work with past life regression, when I take people back to the past, it's so they can understand, heal, and learn from it, so it doesn't affect them in the present. And when I take people into the future, it's so they can see, understand, know the steps to take. So they come back to the future, so they come back to the present, so they're not worried about the future. So, what does Sally-Shakti and everyone who's watching this need to know for their highest good at this moment in time? What does Sally-Shakti and everyone who's watching this live or at a later date, their highest good? Oh, okay, we'll go with that one then, shall we? Oh, okay, we'll go with two then. Got two they've decided to
Well,
come
bless it.
and Harley says, oh, she's fine.
Yay.
Beautiful. Okay, so we have got view from above, get the big picture, and valiant courage, take action with passion.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, that's a really good one. So what this is saying is that it's it's to get the big picture about what is going on at the moment, because when you see that bigger picture, you'll actually then have the courage to actually take that action. So something that is stopping you from moving forward to actually really doing what you are supposed to be doing, what you are passionate about. It's to what they're saying is see it from a high perspective, watch all of it, all the everything that's involved in it, and you'll actually see the route through that you need to take to actually take those steps forward. And that and that's not just for Sally-Shakti, that is for everyone watching here. you know see things from a higher perspective, so you see the whole picture, not just individual things, so that you can then see where you are going that path that you can take to actually take that action with passion as you go through for it. And I'm actually watching these cards, and I'm just creating a story in my head, literally, as I'm watching as I'm reading these cards. There's a story coming through about the lady in there, and then the valiant knight, and um, it's amazing. Cards can create stories as well as giving us insights into what is currently going on in our present time. And Harley says, so this is regard to her war story. It's funny, I've seen that story before. It came up on its own here about a soldier and a nurse.
Wow.
And that's beautiful. So it'll be interesting to see how you go further with that story, Harley, because I'm guessing when you start the initial journaling, that whatever comes out, you can then expand on it.
Yeah, so how I would use that as a foundation for a writing practice. So we've talked about how I worked with that to transform parts of my life, but how we can use that as the beginning part of a writing practice would be, I would start any writing practice in exactly the same way, because that really helps to smooth that transition and not get stuck in the writer's block. It's much more easy to get words down and then let them keep flowing. So when I get into the third part of the practice, I usually take whatever is my focus for the book that I'm writing, and that's when I start writing about that particular topic. And then that would be what I call the spring season, and I guide people around the whole wheel of the year. I guide writers around the whole wheel of the year so that we work through all the different seasons together. And you can edit, so then we look at the different ways that you would edit that, refine it, add to it, whatever needs to be done to kind of bring it into its fullness, if we were going to be turning this into a book or something we were going to publish.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And Harley says, this is so cool. Last night I heard about the 999 portal. One thing said was that if we felt an impulse for creativity, to go for it. And here we are. So helping us with creativity. How wonderful. There's never any reason why my guests don't appear on the show at the ideal time that they're supposed to be on the show. I always know that it's always going to be the best for the show when my guests come on, and it was ideal for you here. So, Sally-Shakti, do you have any insights or thoughts or last words of wisdom to leave our viewers?
Yeah, I want to speak about something I mentioned earlier. The page is the crucible. The really deep alchemy that I believe happens when we write, whether we're writing intuitively, or we're writing because we're writing a book, or whatever it is we're writing. For me, it's a very powerful alchemy. There's the way I understand it, the way I can best describe it at the moment is that when those words are channeling through us because they want to be brought into the world, they want to be brought into physical reality, they change us internally as they move through us. So when we write, we often know that as readers, our lives might be changed by a book, but as writers, our lives also get changed by the process of writing. If you do write something like a book, or anything really of any length, you will not be the same person at the end of it as you were when you started, because of the deep internal alchemy that happens, and the transformation of you becoming the person who wrote that book is a profound transformation. And that, aside from all of the practical ways that I support writers, that is something that I'm really passionate about, supporting people through that process, because I don't think that really gets taken into account enough, that writers need a container of support and often a community of support, and somebody who can guide them and hold them through that process, because it is a deep internal transformation. And as has been hinted about in our discussion today, often what presents itself as writer's block is the inner resistance that we might have to some of the transformation and changes that are coming up for us to move through.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much for those words. And Harley said, definitely last night I said it would be so great to get some help, lol, and it was answered. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that, Harley. So I hope everyone that you've enjoyed this conversation and found it insightful, because I know I definitely have, and I will definitely be going back to do that intuitive journey meditation. So if people want to connect with you, Sally-Shakti, how do they do that? And do you have anything coming up at the moment or anything else?
People can find me on Facebook at Sally-Shakti Willow, also on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Substack at Writing Thriving. My website is writingthriving.com. And I probably do have many things coming up.
So it's best to check your website to find out what those are.
Yeah, find out what I'm up to by connecting with me. But I do have a few things in the pipeline that I really want to help people with their writing.
Cool. That's wonderful. And what I will do is once the show's finished, I will put all your contact details into the comments, both on Facebook and YouTube, so people can literally just click on the links and go straight there. They don't have to type anything in.
Lovely.
For that. So thank you so much, Sally-Shakti, for sharing your wisdom. It's been absolutely amazing. I've loved this conversation. I think everyone who's watched it has. Harley says, this was fascinating. And again, thank you everyone who has tuned in to watch the show live. It's been a pleasure to see you joining in with the conversation. So thank you so much. And of course, if you are now ready to remember your divine presence and step onto your spiritual multidimensional path, but feel lost, confused, stuck, or alone, then please feel free to reach out and connect with me, and we can arrange a free 20-minute clarity video call where we can see where you are now and how I can help you move forward to take charge of your destiny so you can spread your wings and soar. And you can also receive a free gift of a Connect with Your Guides and Angels PDF or a future life progression recording, as well as maybe a couple of other free gifts if you sign up to my email list. And Vigiline says, good to connect with you. It was beautiful. Thank you for joining us so much. And of course, thank you so much for watching. And I would like to invite you to share this video, as I'm sure there are more people who feel lost and want to get clear on their destiny, just like you, and may have that book inside them that needs to come out, or those emotions that need to come out. And of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, then please feel free to subscribe to my channel and hit that bell button to be notified of when this show goes live or I post new guided meditations. And of course, every time you subscribe, like, comment on anything I do, on any of my social channels, on any of Sally-Shakti's channels, on any of my guest channels, you're really helping us get our message out there, and you're part of that ripple effect of bringing light and joy and understanding into the world. So, keep sharing, keep commenting, keep liking. You really do help all of us come together to create this magical space. So thank you all so much, and I look forward to you all joining me same time, same place next week. Take care. Bye.